So hello my friends, Devaun Lennox here, PhotographyPX. In today's video, I want to give you guys my perspective on Fujifilm wide-angle lenses, particularly the XF 16mm versus the 10 to 24mm. In short, I think the 10 to 24mm offers better value and versatility despite being slightly slower. But even so, for landscape, street, photojournalism, and even food photography, it represents a better way to spend money in Fujifilm's ecosystem. Over the course of this video, I will give you detailed examples of our experiences using both of these focal lens for the Fujifilm ecosystem, and I will also discuss why I believe it's a better purchase for these particular mediums. Here specifically, I have the XF 16mm f2.8 RWR lens. And you can find a detailed review on this lens here on our YouTube channel, as well as photographypx.com under the Fujifilm section. Now, I don't have the higher end f1.4 version of this lens, but even so, the f2.8 from our testing offers largely comparable image quality when stopped down. The main differences between this and the f1.4 lens ultimately becomes when fully opened up, the difference in speed between the lenses. But otherwise, this is a great value lens and a more budget-friendly option to the higher-end f1.4 lens, and it's also a lot smaller, more portable, it's much easier to use. While here I have the XF 10 to 24mm f4 ROIS RW lens. It's a lot of a handful there. Now, I'm not going to directly compare this more budget-friendly f2.8 lens to the higher-end f4 lens with this particular comparison. If I had the higher-end f1.4 version of this lens, then I would consider making an image quality comparison video with both of these lenses stopped down. But ultimately, the higher-end 10 to 24mm lens not only has weather sealing, which this also has weather sealing, but it also has optical stabilization, and the optical stabilization plus its wider focal range are what truly make it so much more expensive. And in fact, it's almost 3 times that of this lens. So justifiably, those are the main reasons why it's so much more expensive. So instead, what I'm going to do is compare the differences in versatility that these two lenses provide. And I also want to stress and question why you need the extra versatility a 16 to 35mm equivalent lens offers to you. The XF 16mm is a 24mm equivalent lens, which is well suited for those who want to travel lightweight, but shoot landscapes, street, photojournalism, and even some food photography. With our experience with this particular lens, it's very much possible to shoot all of those mediums. This lens is also quite fast at f2.8, it's sharp, and it's versatile across all those mediums. But the reason why we ultimately ended up getting the 10 to 24mm, and in retrospect something that we should have purchased from the beginning rather than the 16mm lens, is that it offers more versatility, especially at the ultra wide angle field of view and at the ultra wide end of the lens spectrum. For some, its added versatility and focal length may prove unnecessary. However, it may not be a consideration for others until it becomes an issue and something that holds you back creatively. In our case, we fall into the latter group, and we didn't quite understand how much the added focal length when you're zooming out specifically, particularly on the ultra wide side, adds when shooting street, landscape, photojournalism, and night photography. With the 10 to 24mm lens, not only can you zoom in to get a 24mm equivalent, but zooming out gives you 15mm for super ultra wide, and you can also zoom in to 36mm to also shoot environmental portraits. And the reality is that a 24mm lens alone doesn't give you the same field of view. In many situations, you'll find yourself in a tight spot where you can't step back far enough to get a wider perspective. And until purchasing this lens, we could not capture the true depth of street and night photography here in Las Vegas. On screen right now, I will show you a gallery of images I've shot first and foremost with the 24mm equivalent lens here, and then the 10 to 24mm lens here. Now, both of these lenses produce excellent images and have excellent optical constructions and designs. Even so, the versatility differences between them may be a potential deal breaker as your skills develop and sharpen. And you're going to find yourself ultimately, like I was mentioning before, in a situation while shooting where you wish you were able to move further back, but in that case, you won't be able to. And in those moments when you miss shots, those are the moments you have realizations on the importance of gear that you choose. For us, we've been there. We've experienced that plenty of times, so that's why last month I ultimately ended up getting this 10 to 24 millimeter lens myself. And tomorrow I'll be selling the XF 16 millimeter lens here. In retrospect, it would have been a wise move to get the 10 to 24 millimeter from the beginning, and the 10 to 24 millimeter is the lens we should have opted for. Sure, this particular lens is nearly 3 times as expensive as this lens, and yes, it's not as fast as this lens or the XF 16mm f1.4 lens, but even so, the versatility that the 10 to 24mm offers, considering its outstanding image quality, makes it a better overall option, particularly if you shoot more than just landscape alone. For us here at PhotographyPX, we also shoot food, portraits, products, photojournalism, in addition to street, landscapes, and night photography. And for all of these mediums combined, the versatility this lens provides is simply unrivaled in the Fuji ecosystem. The 16 to 35 millimeter focal length is a go-to focal length for ultra-wide and wide-angle images, and it remains the go-to choice amongst professional photographers for a good reason. In many respects, the 16 to 35 millimeter equivalent focal length is similar and analogous to a 24 to 70 millimeter lens for those wanting to shoot mostly landscapes rather than portraits. So ultimately, our verdict at PhotographyPX is this: if you're looking for a lens to capture wide angle images in the Fujifilm current ecosystem of XF lenses, the 10 to 24 millimeter would be the first and foremost option to consider. But those are just my thoughts on that. So there you have it, my friends. There is my perspective and thoughts on the 16 millimeter versus the 10 to 24 millimeter focal length. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or feel like I've overlooked something in the course of this video, please let me know down below. Also, while you're down in the description box down below, we've launched a new brand called pxpresets.com. PX Presets is going to be your next one and only stop for Lightroom presets until we launch Photoshop and other platform presets. But here you can find both desktop and mobile presets to get you started in a variety of different mediums more powerfully and upgrade your imaging and take your images to the next level. That link to pxpresets.com will be in the description box down below. Please check that out if you're in the market for some exciting Lightroom presets. But until next time, my friends, I've been your host, Devaun Lennox. I will see you in the next video.